So let me just make sure I'm doing this correctly. Okay. So Maddie, can you still hear me? Okay, so Miss Maddie, ask your mom if she can still hear us, because I don't know if she has her mic muted.
Okay.
Okay, what's up, my friend? What's up, homie? Nice to see you.
You too.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're like on this platform, but we're live streaming also on Facebook. So it's a little rocky. I'm doing this all by myself. I was supposed to have a friend help me behind the scenes, but I'm not sure where he's at. I think he's having an issue talking to his wife.
Oh, okay.
But I think Miss James could still hear me. I don't know if she could say. Can you say hello, Miss James? Miss Maddie? Oh, I think I see Malon in the background there. Everybody's trying to figure it out. They're kind of moving the cameras around. So if you can, just sit tight. I got a lot I want to discuss with you. This is going to be like kind of a laid back format, nothing formal. We're just gonna let it flow. I didn't even get my coffee ready. I'm calling it a coffee time. I didn't even have a chance to get my coffee time. Oh, here we go. We got Jay the comedian in the house. What up? What up, my brother? What's up, Jay?
What's up, man? How y'all doing?
Oh man, it's good. It's good to hear from you. Good to see you, brother.
Hey, I had to look out for you, man.
Oh, I appreciate the love,
support
man.
me, so I'm like,
keep us all going every day with your videos, keeping us smiling, keeping us cracking up.
For sure,
with your Jehovah Witness. And I know you do that on purpose to bug me with your Jehovah Witness instead of saying Jehovah's Witnesses.
Nope. I keep it singular, the non-possessive.
Right, that's part of the deprogramming. You know what I'm saying?
That's
right.
For
us to not say how they want us to say it, right?
Nah, I'm gonna say it the simplest way for me. You're a Jehovah Witness.
Yes, that's it. Keep it gutty. So Jay, I don't know if you know Miss James, Monique James. She's also a fellow XJW, but
I think that's just a small.
That's just a small aspect of what she does, and I'll let her speak for herself. But she does a lot of community outreach work and stuff like that. So we've been talking for a couple years now of trying to find an effective way to kind of turnkey that into like a lot of the initiatives she kind of spearheads, and how we could have that benefit the community, specifically the XJW community, making sure that Black and Indigenous people of color within the XJW community are also looked after, because I really believe that we're kind of like a often underserved group, and that's why I think your channel is so important to have that representation, have somebody kind of, it's not just about being a Black XJW. You're just an XJW who happens to be a Black man, but you're giving a perspective and a flavor, that's, we could see us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really appreciate what you do. I'll go ahead and let Monique introduce herself a little bit. I'm going to be kind of like trying to get everybody logged in that wants to log in, because it's a little bit rocky now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not studio quality like you yet, bro. So I'm trying to get there.
I'm not studio quality.
Go ahead, Monique. You can just go ahead and introduce yourself and
what up, Monique?
I'm Monique James in the ATL, and was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, like most people.
Me too.
When I decided to leave, I just didn't look back.
Hey.
I see a lot of people have trouble transitioning out of the witness community, and I've of late understood why. you know,
Yeah.
why there are so many struggles in housing and just the basic needs, food, shelter, and clothing, such deep depression. So that's part of what I've done with a nonprofit in Cincinnati. We have this program called Kaleidoscope, and we help people make positive lifestyle changes.
Okay.
So in Atlanta, we renamed it Don't Count Me Out.
Okay.
And
I like that. I
don't,
like that.
yeah. But we were working with the city, with the municipal courts to end cash money bail. And
Oh,
people that have been
nice.
arrested for low level misdemeanors like being homeless or jaywalking or asking for a
Yeah.
cigarette.
Yeah.
But when my mother decided to leave, my family showed a side of themselves to me that I would never have believed.
Mm.
Just keeping her against her will, cutting off her resources.
Wow.
And that I had to do some research, like what in the world is going on? I'm in my mind, successful businesswoman having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But my cousin, Melissa, who was also raised as a witness, she said there's a whole XJW community. I was like, what? And she told me about some of the groups. And so I was like, wow, like they're really going into how this publication was wrong. And then you get introduced to The Crisis of Conscience by Raymond France and everything that debunks prophecy by prophecy, Bible chapter by Bible chapter, everything we were raised to believe.
Yeah.
So that happened to me in 2018. Really, it started in 2018. And so I've come to understand that there is a faction of people in the XJW community that don't recognize there are two things we have to overcome as people of African descent. When we leave, we have to overcome that indoctrination of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then we have to face racism or white supremacy. When we were witnesses, we were told God's kingdom is going to cure all of that. Just wait. And racial inequities, white supremacy, that's the world, and God's going to heal that in a new order. Well, it's not true. It's not true that that new system they're talking about that they've been prophesying 4 different times would be the end. There's not going to be that end. So we have to do something ourselves.
Yeah.
And so some of those XJW communities, when I saw Joshua, he would bring up Black Lives Matter, and we would talk about the right to vote. And I saw them lambaste him and call him every stereotypical name a Black man would be called, including the N-word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what in the world
I got that too. I
get
all that too. Absolutely. See, this is when it comes to it's so much that goes into it. Like, first off, when you are a Black person in America, period, you have to battle certain brainwashing. You know what I mean? Because like, even though slavery ended, when you look around, did it really? You know, like really look around. The people who are doing exactly, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, slavery became more inclusive, meaning that there are more than just Black slaves. But for the most part, slavery is still here and thriving. Like, it's just poor, you know? Like, all poor people are pretty much these slaves, you know? Because the rich, they just get to live their life and do whatever they want to do for the most part. But when it comes to the jobs that nobody really wants to do, when it comes to like who's getting paid the least amount of money, who's always the closest to poverty, you know what I mean? And stuff like that, it's usually Black and brown people and a lot of white people too, you know what I mean? But for the most part, the white privilege thing kind of still helps a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have that fear of talking to the police or going into a place and not even being looked at because of the color of their skin and stuff like that. So it presents another problem. Now, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, it makes it 10 times worse when you're a Black person, because the skills and stuff that you need in America in order to be successful, they routinely and constantly guide you away from those things. Don't go to school. Don't get an education. Don't work hard on a career that could be successful for yourself and something you can leave for your family going forward. Don't do anything. Even if you are blessed with athleticism and the ability to go to college for free, don't go. Go to Bethel. You know what I mean? Like any and everything that could have helped people better their lives, they steer them away from. Now, it's even harder when you're black because you're already dealing with the whole like, oh, he's black. So, we're going to make sure he's like all the music he hears is about gang banging. All the food that he eats because he's poor is going to be unhealthy. We're not going to really like put out a life of, health and, like pushing people forward. You know what I mean? Like it's very rare for a lot of people to like really get through the navigation. Like when I grew up in my neighborhood, I was constantly presented with like liquor store, drug dealer. Everybody who I ever seen when I was young that was successful, they was a gang banger or a drug dealer. You know what I mean? Like the only time I seen somebody on the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
So only person who I seen that was like really successful was like on TV. That was the Bill Cosby show. That was the first time I seen like a black person who was like an attorney who had this big house. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm like, this almost is unrealistic because this ain't my experience. I don't know too many black people because usually if somebody black, they do get that success and they do get that that level of wealth. They leave the neighborhood and they never come back. So those examples aren't there. The examples you see is like gangbangers and stuff like that. So if you're able to navigate through all of that, all those like little brainwashing things, and you do go to school and you do follow a career without getting a record, which is kind of easy to do in the neighborhood I grew up at. As soon as you get that record, you can't get no good job no more. You know what I mean? And usually people get those records when they're teenagers and they doing the dumb stuff, Now, if you're not guided correctly during those young years, but I guess the point I was trying to make is if you like navigate through all that stuff and you do become successful, then you can finally start to build something. But the Jehovah Witnesses make sure that you don't navigate correctly. They make sure you waste your youth, your talent, your money, your kids, your future, all that, to make sure that the organization is happy and safe and doing great. You know what I mean?
And let me go back to something else you said. There are poor people that are of different ethnicities, and there have always been poor people. But the way people of African descent are thrown into jail, like you said,
Absolutely.
it is very rare that you can get out of some neighborhoods without a record.
Absolutely.
Black men and boys especially are targeted for incarceration. And you're going to work when you're incarcerated, maybe for pennies a day. It might be at a golf course. It might be cutting the grass on the side of the highway, but you're going to work. So it is slavery.
Yeah, the 13th Amendment. Yeah. And the 13th Amendment says that specifically. I think it's the 13th Amendment where they say like, you're free as long as you're not in jail. Because if you're in jail, then you're technically a slave. You're only free if you're not in jail, So yeah.
Her movie was eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's important for everyone who is a former Jehovah's Witness to acknowledge that there is a struggle for people of African descent, and they need to welcome the conversations about
Absolutely.
it. But what I found in a lot of the ex-JW communities is the castigation of people like Joshua and marginalizing him and then kicking him out of groups, just like people would be ousted from the Kingdom Home. So I didn't see too much difference. Now, mind you, I had already gone into the business world and I had mentors that showed me the way. So to go into a XJW community and to expect some solace or at least like a city of refuge, And then to see how people of color were treated once they talked about their own personal struggle, then that became an issue for me.
I
And
can see that.
I don't want.
Can I ask a question, Monique?
Sure. What's your name?
I'm Shannon. I'm Shannon Rowland. I was on a show with Josh years ago, 6 Screens, and was excited to be here today and visit. You know, obviously, if you didn't notice, I'm white. I do a lot of equity racial training at my school because we're an urban school district. So I am learning to have those courageous conversations, ask questions, and learn more because I tend to view on a humanistic level. I didn't realize some of the things that being Black means for Black people, you know, treatment-wise and so forth. But you were saying that in the ex-Jehovah Witness community that Josh had been kicked out, and are you saying you felt that was due to race or?
Definitely. Most of the time, I mean, if somebody's going to refer to him as the N-word on 6 Screens, and the person, whoever is the moderator of 6 Screens, does not correct that, and
absolutely
there's an apology, it was usually when there were posts around the empowerment of Black people, or one post that I posted recently in a group, the ex-empowerment of Jehovah's Witnesses or something. It was about a woman who co-founded Black Lives Matter, and they have just been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. So I posted that, and then the comments start to go to the left. Well, I don't like Black Lives Matter, or they do this, or race and race baiting. And instead of recognizing the empowerment of the woman, then the comments of the same characters who come in anytime Josh would say something about rights to vote, or Black empowerment, or, you know, mass incarceration, they don't want to hear it, and so those posts are removed. And I asked
well, I am just that makes me so sad. I know when a lot of things opened up about Black Lives Matters, I guess it was about June, I wrote a lengthy post because it took a beautiful Black woman to help me realize that the fact I claimed not to see color, thinking that was the polite way as a white person to be, she really made it known that because I was choosing that stand as a white person, in a sense, I was ignoring issues that are prevalent today that you know, someone of color deals with. So then I felt so bad because obviously that wasn't my intention, but that's what made me start to learn and grow. And when I brought out the post, it was quite lengthy about, you know, I'm getting educated as a white woman. Did you know that a Black person, just because they have a different color, deal with this? And mainly it was referenced around the talk. Now, for me as a white woman, the talk with my kids would have been about the birds and the bees. When I had to actually see that a human being has to look at their beautiful children and warn them of the possibilities of being treated differently, looked at differently, categorized, a million other things that happen to a little child just because they're not white, I guess. I mean, it broke my heart. And I did notice.
That's why I love you so much, Shannon. I don't mean to step on what you're saying, but I've known you're one of the first, actually, everybody that's listening. Shannon Rowland and I have a history, interesting history going back, because when I first left the organization in 2015, and probably need a lot of therapy and did not need to be no activist because I was all over the place. I'm still all over the place. That's just the way I am. You know what I'm saying? I'm just animated like that.
Everyone may have thought you were crazy, but I loved you. And you
I
gave
was
me my
crazy.
break in the business.
That shit crazy, man. I was like screaming. I was barking, screaming, Charles Tage, Russell! outside of my window, you know. But you know, we get all this like years of training in the theocratic school, and we think we're gonna change the world, and we think we actually was winning arguments at the door. Half the time, it was just people were like, "That mofo crazy," and be like, you know, "Have a good day," you know what I'm saying? But you know, we have all this stuff built up in us, and we want to have a voice.
Yeah,
and that's why, you know, I was on that crazy six screen show because, you know, I was cut off from like
your voice had been shut down, literally, and you still had it.
JWs and XJWs for years. It's like, welcome to our world, because we're like removed from society, removed from interacting with people. So we were doing stuff like this back in 2015, you know, having like conference calls and group calls. It was kind of like a bootleg a Kingdom Hall. But I remember I wanted to, you know, do my activism thing and everything. You're one of the first people I interviewed. And anytime I say, hey, I want to do an interview of a XJW and everything, and I maybe should, I don't know, I'm giving away my secret. I always get that link of our 2.5-hour interview that we did back on YouTube, and I show it to them.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and that's it kind of like disarms people, and they feel like, oh, this black man is not going to say kill whitey and make me feel bad about being white. He's going to actually interview me. We're going to talk about JW, because it was such a beautiful interview, and you like are so articulate. You really like vividly give us a picture of like what you went through with your daughters and the shunning and everything. And it was really touching interview. And, you know, I like to brag. I was the first one that got Shannon to talk publicly, you know, about her experience. And the next thing you know, a couple years later, I see you on TV with Leah Remini and the celebrities and stuff like that. And I was like, that's my girl. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. But, you know, this is a good example. Like, for instance, this call wasn't necessarily like intended to be like a discussion panel on race or anything like that. It's okay if we talk about that. That wasn't the original intent, but this is just an example how in this space or anything that I'm involved with, you know, and it's an honor to have Jay here who does a lot in the community. You know, we could just be our authentic selves. We're being our authentic self. We're talking about what we want to talk about. It doesn't have to be XJW, or it can be. And without that fear of we're going to get tone policed, or, you know, said that, well, what does that have to do with, you know, cult deprogram, or just, you know, like some of the things that happened to me and Monique and even Jay, that he does such a great job, because I've never really seen him harp on it, because that's not what his channel's about. But don't think that he's not going through it.
Yeah.
Us as XJWs, we go through it. Like he was saying, like there's always that extra, whatever you're going through as a JW, no matter what color you are, it's horrible, it's horrific. You know, whether it's the sexual abuse you survive, the shunning you survive, the loss of job, like being out here in the world with no resources, all that. It's horrible for all of us. But for some of us, we have that extra layer of just navigating like racism and discrimination and stuff that we were ill-equipped. We weren't prepared for this. And some of us that are from the hood, like me, Jay, and Monique, that still dealt with it. We knew what was up. You know what I'm saying? We were dealing with all these things. We look to the organization as out. Like that was we look to the organization as an answer. This was that was our pain pill, you know? That was our way of being involved with civil rights and Black Lives Matter preaching. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so,
you know, being human is hard enough.
Right.
Then you compound it with, you know, losing an entire family, for instance, due to shunning, having your mind twisted and brainwashed. Then you add, say, an abusive relationship or molestation, financial hardship, maybe color, all these things, it just becomes such a heavy, heavy load.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on something you said real good. I think you did a beautiful job of explaining like the whole I don't see color thing. One other point I wanted to add on to that, like we understand you're trying to be polite. We get it.
Yeah.
You know? And it's even more so than some of the things you're saying. One other extra point I wanted to add beside, like being dismissive of what people are going through. When you tell me you don't see my color, you're literally telling me I don't see you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, you don't see this black man and standing right in front of you?
You know what I'm saying?
It's like,
face. But if that woman had not been bold enough to say that, I wouldn't have, it wouldn't have hit me. It needed to hit me.
And so like us as black people, we don't have the time or the mental labor to be like, to correct every single white person that says, that basically disrespects you on a daily basis and says, I don't see you. So they're basically invalidating your lived experience. I don't see you. I don't see color. And so like, these are the microaggressions that we have to deal with all the freaking time. So
and I don't even know how you would
you have a privilege that you don't have to worry about that stuff. That's your privilege. It doesn't mean that you're not poor or that you're not going through it or that you haven't had a hard time. But this is the thing, the way white supremacy works, that white rage and that white fragility, because they feel like you're attacking them, it just explodes, I don't have a privilege.
I know that when I made that post, the thing that really bugged me the most, and it was mainly white men, which I even have a thing.
Keep talking, I'm listening.
As a woman, I'm still trying to get paid as much as a man or have my voice matter. But they would always say, all people matter. And I tried to reiterate, I said, yes, they do. And that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. They want to be a part of that all matter. And right now we have to make an emphasis on Black people being a part of all people. That's what they couldn't seem to understand. Right now, there needs to be a preface of where all people is forgetting a group. Rise above to where it becomes all people. You're not trying to say Black people matter more or the only people that matter. You just want to be a collective part of the collective.
And that's the thing, like exactly that. When it comes to the whole all lives matter thing, that kind of puts out there that nothing needs to change, because if you're saying all lives matter, then okay, we've already accepted that, all humans matter. Like that's where we're at generally. And if you're going to just throw that in and say all lives matter, then that means that you believe nothing needs to change and everything is all right. Like all lives matter. Nobody needs to do nothing differently. Let's just keep on living. But Black people are saying, hold on. We would like to be involved in that too. So let's make sure that we're not forgetting our Black and brown people out here. You know what I mean? Like that's the biggest problem. See, a lot of stuff, it comes down to undermining the Black message or movement. Whatever the Black movement is, it always gets taken over and then undermined. Like when Colin Kaepernick clearly said that he was taking a knee to protest police brutality. They took that and said, oh no, he's protesting America and the American flag, when that was never, ever part of the protest.
As a matter of fact, it was a white Republican
military officer,
fellow NFL player that told him, listen, don't be doing the standing up, raising the fist. You should politely take a knee.
Right.
So he listened.
And he did it. Yeah.
And
to be more respectful. To be more respectful, right?
For the flag, for the, and there's all kind of instances when a soldier dies or something where people take a knee and pray, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever. So that's showing reverence for what's happening at the same time.
Right.
But
that's specifically
using your constitutional right to protest. It was never about the flag. It was never about the flag.
But that just goes to show, like, our message, whenever we have a movement or anything like that, it gets hijacked and then it gets remixed, like the Black Lives Matter thing. All right, when they go out and they protest Black Lives Matter, another police officer didn't hurt somebody and something else bad is going on. There are instigators. There are people there who do burn buildings and break stuff and go crazy, right? But
There's
not all the
people that stormed the Capitol.
Exactly. See, this is the thing. There's going to always, whenever there's a big protest or anything like that, there's going to be people who are emotional. Like if every XJW right now got together and we marched to Warwick, right? If every XJW do it, I would be peaceful. I feel like I'd be peaceful.
Sure, I would too.
I feel like a lot of us would be peaceful, but I guarantee you not all of us would be.
Sure.
I guarantee you there's going to be glass broken. There's going to be burning cars. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are going to take it too far because that's what a protest is. It's a bunch of people and you can't control everybody. You know what I mean?
Not only that, usually, by and large, we're going to talk about protests because I've been protesting for a while now. But by and large, these protests, when it comes to like social justice, not just Black Lives Matter, because that's just another name for what was going on in the 60s, whether it's the Poor People's Campaign, you know, the March on Selma, it's the same thing. By and large, those are peaceful protests. It gets violent. Usually, first of all, most of the time, the people that are doing the most property damage and stuff is white people. That's number one. And secondly, when they get violent, it's because we get a militarized police with riot gear and tear gas and all of that. All the stuff that these Capitol insurrectionists didn't get. So if you react to peaceful protesters and you come out there with riot gear and tear gas and shields and stuff, like, you know, are you kidding me? Of course there's going to be like a riot, you know what I'm saying? When we start beating people up and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that there's never been Black Lives Matter, you know, people that, you know, instigated stuff, you know, but like, you know, you got to put it in context and there's a big difference between saying, hey, can you please not kill us? You know, and hey, you know, stop putting your knee on our neck than what white people riot for because of conspiracy theory and they riot because when they win a hockey match and stuff and start it's like it's a false equivalency, you know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to throw that in there and like about like the All Lives Matter thing. I mean, I feel like I got all this stuff memorized because I've had to repeat this so much. I mean, it's like imagine going to a demonstration about breast cancer, and then an angry mob shows up and says, "Save the whales!" And save the trees. And say, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, you don't care about whales? Well, of course I care about the whales. But right now we're talking about, breast cancer. It's the same thing. You're showing up to a Black Lives Matter rally to say something we know. We know all lives matter, but they're not going to matter until Black and Native people start mattering in this country. And when they matter, then all lives can truly matter. You know what I'm saying? So, like you were saying about all our movements being remixed, I mean, they did that to Me Too. Me Too was started by a Black woman and wanted to work. You don't even hear about her, but you hear about Melissa Milano. You know what I'm saying? And they weaponize that and they say, oh, SJW, cancel culture. So it dilutes and takes the teeth out of a movement that is really, speaking out and calling out and canceling something that needs to be canceled. And so, that's just something we just deal with in society. And so, if I'm in an XJW environment or group, and of course, I'm empathetic. I'm talking about, most of the people I used to interview when I was doing my activism thing in XJW were white people. And I wasn't seeing color, like you were saying, the same intent. And I was doing audio. I was doing audio calls, you know what I'm saying? And, it was a beautiful thing. That wasn't like, the focus, I wasn't talking about race or whatever, but like in these calls and in these spaces, I noticed that, like Vastapod State Army and all these different groups, they want to be their authentic selves. Let us be our authentic selves. So they could talk about whatever they want, Star Wars, Trump, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And nobody bats an eye. You know, the minute I talk about Patrisse Cullors, who's an ex-JW who founded Black Lives Matter, getting a Nobel Peace Prize possibly, oh my God, like, you know, we're just like attacked. And then it's like, you know, we don't get a chance to be our authentic self. So what wound up happening, and I truly believe is, so many of us Black JWs, ex-JWs and Latino ex-JWs, we haven't been able to come together and coalesce and collaborate because we're always getting kicked out of all these groups.
Oh, wow. You know, I am just bumfuzzled. And you really, because I haven't been in a lot of the groups. I'm just trying to survive. Yesterday, 18 hours, you know. And I went through a very abusive relationship. So I've chosen to take some time off to heal and just try to regroup. So I haven't been on a lot of these groups. And to me,
yeah, I don't bug you.
yeah, to me, I see any type of, like you were talking about, whether it's breast cancer survivor or any type of group, it takes a very brave and passionate human being to step up out of the grid, to be seen, to be bold, to be brave, and send a message that many, many, many of us need. Yet I see that the collective conscious of people around us are so status quo that they can't even envision change, something different, possibility that they need to review their priorities, that maybe they have been conditioned to think away because of their color or their status. And I am, you know, after having been held up in a cult, my brain, my heart is so open to learning, understanding. I don't want to be ignorant. Am I going to agree on everything? Absolutely not. But I'm not going to press my will or thoughts on another. I'm going to come in peace. And I think most people with the Black Lives Matter, for instance, that's all they wanted to do.
Oh my God, it was started by one of us. Started by an ex-JW. And like, wow.
Yeah. You know what it is? Most of the time when it comes to politics and stuff like that, politics is truly one of the most divisive subjects ever. And it's always been that way. But it's gotten even worse under Donald Trump. Now, this is the thing that I would like to say. When it comes to people and talking about politics and stuff like that, you have to have a certain skill set to do it. If you do not have that skill set, you cannot do it. Because a lot of people, anybody can know about politics, everybody can learn about politics, but if you do not have the ability to communicate with others, you shouldn't do it. Because one thing you need to know is that you should never live in a position to where everything you think is right and everything somebody else think is wrong. You have to live in a constant, like, just reminder of, I could be wrong. And I appreciate any information that comes to me. You know what I mean? Once you get that in mind, then you can have a conversation with somebody. Because a lot of people that I see, they start their conversation with an attack. And when you start a conversation with an attack, that automatically puts the other person in the defensive. Now, when two people, one is attacking and the other is defending, they're not exchanging information. The person that's in a defense is waiting for his moment to attack. And the person that's on offense is waiting for his moment to go back on defense. So it's a fight. It's not an exchange of information. And that's what it is when it comes to, like, a lot of things. Like, for instance, when you bring up Black Lives Matter to people.
I apologize. I want to say something, and then you tell me your thing. Do you notice that in these exchanges, the onus is on us to be the calm one? We're the ones that are expected to be toned. We're the ones that are expected to, like, not get upset. We're the ones that are not expected to be to just have to, like, receive the abuse and not react. And the minute we show any kind of emotion or passion, you know, when we're being insulted or whatever, it's like, oh, angry Black man, angry Black woman. You know what I'm saying? It's like, white supremacy, the way it works, it's like it always has to be on your terms. And that's been like Like people, like they get to know me, they're like, well, you're just a really nice guy. You're just like a teddy bear. Like, but when they see me online, it's like I turn into Farrakhan, right? You know, I'm like I go hard. I'm saying I'm Khalid Muhammad, right? They're like, you know, why is that? Is because it's coming from a place of love, because we are always expected to meet white people where they're at, where they feel comfortable. You know, like, don't get upset at me, for instance, because I said I don't see color. I didn't know. And like the tears and the, you know, whatever. But like nobody ever wants to meet us where we're at, you know, in our outrage or our pain or our trauma. So like it's kind of, I'm coming from a place of love, because I'm trying to save you, white XJW, because you're going out in the real world and you're going to be talking to black people. Some of them are not XJWs. I'm trying to save you from getting punched in the face. You know what I'm saying? Because in the real world, you know, people aren't going to tolerate that. They're not going to come to where you're comfortable at. You know what I'm saying? And like I think Martin Luther King might have said this quote, you know, like comfortability is the enemy of progress. Being comfortable, if you're comfortable, you're never going to be progressed. So that's why I'm with no filter. Like I tell you like it is. Like if you say something out of pocket, I might be nice and try to politely tell you, hey, that's kind of racist, or that's, you know, that's triggering or whatever. Like all these XJW groups, I'm triggered, and everybody respects it. But like nobody wants to give a fuck about our triggers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's why I say.
I'm sorry I cut you, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that out.
Nah, that's what I was saying. Go ahead. You guys want to say something?
I was just gonna say. I mean, I will say, as a white woman, my issues have been different, but we all have the same past with the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. And I honestly don't have hardly anyone in my life because of the oddities of my life. For instance, I have a granddaughter and one on the way that I've never gotten to see. So all my peers who are grandmas don't want to talk to me because they want to be excited about their grandchildren. And sometimes I have to remove myself from the conversation because I'm happy for them, but I don't have that. Then you have people that parents, siblings, both my brothers died. And imagine this, on the week of my birthday. So even get to celebrate my birthday now sucks. You know, I've just got all these oddities that really come down to having been raised a Jehovah's Witness. I can't financially take care of myself without 2 extra part-time jobs on top of my full-time job. I believed in a man who wound up being an evil, abusive man. Now I'm in more financial stuff. So honestly, if I'm truthful with people when I run into them and what my life is really like, that I didn't celebrate holidays growing up, so I'm not as familiar with stuff as they are. They just look at me dumbfounded.
Like a deer in the headlights, right?
And this is the word, Josh, that you used. It's uncomfortable. And they don't know what to do with it. People that are uncomfortable tend to run from it. And you sit there by yourself in the uncomfortableness when all I really would like is a hi, how are you? Maybe a hug, a joke. I had a bad, you know, just acknowledge I'm having a rough time, but they believe in me. I'm not asking anyone to solve my problems.
Exactly.
Them away. But just see that they're there. Like you want to be seen that you're there. And I have this issue just because of the color of my skin. So I get, in a sense, not for the same reasons, but in a sense where you're coming from. I want to be seen and acknowledged too. Just because I have a weird past doesn't make me any less human.
Listen, you're a woman.
Contact.
You're a woman. And women deal with that shit all the time from men.
Yes.
I'm a black man and I call out white privilege, but I also have male privilege.
Well,
there's things.
I'll tell you, the white man trying to have a conversation at this age and see if there could be any possible future has been the most ridiculous thing. I could do a whole comedy show on that.
You need to do it. We need to hear from you. You're already on TV, so we need to hear from you. But it's like, that's been an analogy that I've used that has helped a lot of people and that have really come over to my side and, you know, that are like you, is like, when I start using the analogy, there's, from what I understand, and I don't want to speak for women, I want you to like speak.
No, but that is good, Josh.
The worst thing that you can tell a woman, tell me if I'm correct. If you're upset, like you say, you want to be seen and acknowledged and everything, and you have a legitimate reason to be upset, Shannon, and I tell you, calm down.
Yeah.
Is that ever going to work?
No. You need to be acknowledged. You need to, you know, most, and especially white men, are afraid to ask questions because all of a sudden they may not have the answer. I think they always want to have the answer. They want to be able to solve, execute, and make, you know, their control the reason something worked out. When you give up that control, you learn so much more about other human beings, the world. You understand different aspects of life that just are truly a gift. And some of them are excruciating, painful to learn, but in the long run, it's a blessing. I use the one thing that happened with me when I was homeless, and it's about attitude. I felt like the worst person in the world. I lost my job, lost my apartment, all in 10 days, and I'm living in a tent. I have my 5-year-old son. I don't have any food. The raccoons had eaten it. He's only 5, and I'm feeling like just a failure. And I walked I went to another area to see if the camping might work out better for me. And I'm picking up sticks for my fire, and my little boy's helping me. And I had found a can of Pringles and a juice box. And we sat on 2 rocks across from one another, watched the boats getting in the water. It was really hot. I'm dipping my son in. Obviously, all these negative self-thoughts. And I pull out the treats and I say, look, Lane, look what mommy found.
Wow.
And he sat there with his little legs crossed, his eyes just glistening with the sunlight and the shimmer of the water, with his chip and his juice box. And he looked at me and he said, you know what, Mom? This is the best day ever.
Wow.
Now, I'm telling you, being homeless sucked. But my son taught me that I make every day, no matter my circumstances, my situation, or what other people believe. I have to choose. I had a dream about my daughter and granddaughter yesterday. I had to recoup, or last night. I had to recoup this morning and choose joy, gratefulness. And it's hard. And I've got a lot on my plate, as we all do. Circumstances, some similar. But I know if I choose joy, I will continue to spread good in the world, and hopefully through the universe, it'll trickle to my daughters and my granddaughters.
It will. And you know what? It trickles to a lot of us because you're a person that, you know, doesn't really get involved with the drama, the confrontation and stuff. You know, I've known you for a long time. We've gone months and months without talking, but every time
I hate confrontation. If someone's not going to be a willing participant to really look at the issues, I'm out.
This is the point I'm trying to make. Despite you being that way, when you do talk or when you have something to say, you make a splash. Look at you now. And that's why
Thank you.
You know, if you want to talk about the universe without getting religious or metaphysical, like when you were on that Leah Remini show, and I was just watching you, your story was like one of the best stories out of that whole thing. And you were able to like have a reach right now. I could go to Netflix right now and pull up.
I still get people that message me. I've got one guy, his wife is an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and it's helping him to understand pieces of her that he wasn't able to. He's wanting me to start a podcast, and I'm just like, oh, bang my head.
You always say that, but every time you do, you like knock it out the park. So I would love to help you with that. But like, that's just the point I was trying to make, you know, like, you know, what seems to work with me, and I don't know if Jay agrees, you know, or anybody else that wants to chime in, it's like, there's nothing worse than a man, even if a man has good intentions, and this is not me talking as a man, this is what women have told me in my activism work, working with women of all races. There's nothing worse than a man sucking up all the oxygen in the room and, mansplaining a woman's oppression, right?
Yeah.
Or mansplaining, what a woman should
That's
feel.
a great example. I've had a man try to do that, and I'm like, well, you got it wrong. You're not a woman, so you wouldn't know. I'm not black, so I can't say I know.
I could empathize, though. I could be in solidarity and try to help elevate your voice, but, you don't want me to mansplain for you, right? So, like, when I give women that analogy, they seem to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because, I hate that.
Very fair.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying earlier, like, people really need to get accustomed to and stop feeling like what they know is 100% the truth and 100% right, because you do not. There's always room for growth. Anything right now that you think you're 100% sure of and that you're 100% knowledgeable about, there's a chance you could be wrong. So you need to take in knowledge. When a woman is saying that she's going through something, that she's been feeling a certain type of way, you don't get to say, and you tripping. You're going, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not really going through it. It's not that bad. You don't know. You're not hurt. You haven't been through what she's been through. You cannot tell that woman how she feels. You need to sit back and listen.
Do you think, and this is a question for the group, do you think being an ex-Jehovah's Witness, where we were trained not to have any other opinion than the men in New York, no open-mindedness whatsoever, do you feel personally that no longer being attached to that has helped you be more open-minded in society today?
Absolutely. Like, because you were forced. Once you leave the organization, you got two choices: either wake up or just perish. Because
find a new. I've seen
a new thing to follow.
A new way of trying to oppress other people again.
This is the thing: when you're a Jehovah's Witness, they gear you to fail outside the organization.
Yeah.
Like, when you're inside, they gear you and they prepare you ever since inception. Like, the moment you're born, you're taught to fail outside the organization.
Absolutely. And I did. I fell right on my ass. I was arrested 8 times.
They made it that way.
Gangster, that's my girl, Shannon. Gangster, bro.
But that's what you're geared to do, though. Friends, I just always was stupid and found myself in the wrong place. Like, here I am.
But that's what they want you to do. That's what they want to happen to you. So then when you do get outside the organization and things don't go the way.
8 times.
But when things don't go the way you want them to, or as smoothly as you would like to, you run back to the organization. That's what they want you to do.
And that's what they try to get you to do. I got arrested 8 times and realized they were right. My dad kicked me out at 16, so I was worldly until I was like 20. Obviously, didn't accomplish much other than being, having knowing the police officers by first name. And so I went back out of fear and, then created my family where, I had my 2 daughters and my husband was an elder. I was a pioneer. My dad was the presiding overseer. And I studied with one gal. She became a witness and my best friend. And then they started an emotional affair. And I got pissed off because I didn't want to be married to him if he was going to have this emotional affair. But how can you get divorced? Only if the marital tie has literally been broken. So what I do, I go and sleep with a man that I had known 15 years earlier just to break it. And I came home and I said, "You're free to marry Jenny." I wasn't in my right mind. I wasn't thinking, "Oh, well, yeah, I just love that."
You were in your right mind. This is why I say, in my opinion, and if I'm saying something wrong, correct me. But it's like you're forced and pushed into a situation. And I've talked to so many XJWs, even when I was in the organization, there's people that are like in good standing that have like committed adultery so that they can get a stressful divorce.
But see, I'm the only one guilty. No one thinks that. I mean, I had Jehovah's Witnesses coming to me saying, "You're going to have to do something. There is something going on between them." And me, my pissed off mind, I just wanted to run from it. But ironically, I got pregnant with that boy that now has never been in Jehovah's Witness. So I am blessed Yeah, one time I go out, not only did I
Ain't that how it happens?
I got pregnant and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey guys, one thing I wanted to just say, there's somebody on the line here that's like cracking up listening to all our wild stories, Emily, and she's a really good friend of mine.
Hi, Emily.
I'm not sure. I forgot. I know you're like you're kind of in the Midwest, right? Oh man, we got bad. I don't know what's going on with your mic. But while she works on that, I just want to just give you a little context about Emily. So I met Emily in a group. You know how you say you leave Jehovah's Witness and you try to branch out to other things?
Yeah.
So I met her in a group that was called Conversations with Indigenous People. You know, and indigenous, people think indigenous, they think of a certain look, either you're Pocahontas or Tonto, you know what I'm saying? And if you really think about it, everybody has ancestry that's indigenous to somewhere.
Yeah.
And we know that Africa, the continent, is the cradle of the situation. But just like in the Latino community, there's a lot of colorism and racism. There's a lot of colorism and racism in the XJW community. In many communities, it's not just you know, specific to us. And mental illness is something that's a big problem in the community, in the XJW community. And it's an epidemic in the African American and Latino community. And in our communities, there's a stigma with just admitting that you have mental illness or getting help for mental illness, right?
Well, and the help part is the worst. You know, when I was on the show, there were 10 of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and 5 of us lost a family member to suicide.
Right, and suicide is a big thing. I found out recently to add on to that, like one of the things that really got me involved with trying to reach out to the XJW community and just to try to make spaces like this where we could just kind of come together and have our little bootleg Kingdom Hall or whatever, like our little.
Yeah, this is my kind of perfect. It's Saturday, no makeup, my coffee. I'm literally
right. You know, that's why I got my coffee out. I forgot I did get some coffee, but like. You know,
I thought about a Bloody Mary, but you know.
You know, mental illness is deadly. You know what I'm saying? And it's an epidemic. And like in the Black community, like there's really little resources for us. You know what I'm saying? As it is. So, you know,
well,
like
when I went through all that, I wound up being a public speaker for NAMI, the National Alliance.
Oh, I love NAMI. NAMI.
Yeah, because well, my mom. You know, obviously she committed suicide when I was 8 because she didn't disfellowshipped and deal with that. So she just left us.
Well, you know, that
1975.
You know, supposedly
when I left, you know, we're a tribal people and you lose your entire community. I became extremely depressed and distraught. And I wanted to get on antidepressants. Of course, I couldn't reach my doctor. He was on vacation for 6 weeks. Anyway, I wound up going to the hospital, and that's when Jenny and Heath filed for an emergency protective order against me of my daughters because that was their in. And long story short, I had to have a cab driver. I just lost temporary custody of my girls. I was hospitalized. My father told me to find a homeless shelter. And I did have a home then, and I had to get a cab driver on a cold December morning. I went to my home and I'm like, I looked at the floor and I wanted to just crawl into it and hide. But I stood at the doorway and I'm like, Shannon, if you do that, you may never get back up. So I got on the computer and I started looking up depression, and I contacted a suicide hotline. And after talking to that woman for 2 hours, she put me in touch with NAMI and says, you need to tell your story. You need to be a speaker. And I not only did I do that, I became a trainer. I held seminars and helped others stories.
Yeah,
I was member of the year and secretary of my board. I got to help train the first team of CIT officers in the city I was living in. And that was all because I went through traumatic losses, personal pain. the emotional feeling of never even going to be able to live through the next minute. So when we have pain, when we hurt, when we are lost, we must remember someone somehow is getting a message to us that we can rise above this and we can help create change. That's exactly where the situation of Black Lives Matter or any other, group develops. It's through personal pain and loss that we tell our stories and we help others to also rise above.
Absolutely. And just building on what you're saying, going back to Emily. So I went into this group, Conversations with Indigenous People, right? And a big...
Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, but I'm glad you said that, because in that group is made up of people that are across the spectrum. Many of us are indigenous, but we're white passing. But we have indigenous, we're Native American or native to the Caribbean or whatever. But because maybe somebody's white passing, they're denied, being able to participate in their culture and their, because they don't look like what society sees them as being indigenous. Right. Same thing with African people of African descent. I'm Puerto Rican, but I'm an Afro-Puerto Rican. And my island in Puerto Rico, not everybody looks like Mark Anthony, J-Lo, and Ricky Martin.
Right.
Puerto Rico is a very Black country, okay? And so we don't get a lot of representation. And in a lot of the so-called Taino spaces, we're treated like we don't belong there. You're Black. And we're very much indigenous and Native Americans. You know what I'm saying? We're indigenous to the island. So this group formed, Conversations with Indigenous People, where supposedly everybody should be able to feel safe to be their authentic self and talk about being African and being indigenous. And hey, let's talk about being Welsh and being, from Europe, but just having, indigenous, Gaelic, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It was supposed to be a safe place. But you know what I found out? The same fight we're having in XJW, they were having it in the indigenous group. Why are you talking about Black Lives Matter? Oh, you can't say Native Lives Matter. You're cultural appropriation. But it's like, do you know that Native people get killed at a higher rate than even African Americans by the police? And Native women are, raped and killed and murdered at epidemic levels, even more than Black women. We were having all these confrontations. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's the same thing going on. So then you realize this struggle, this fight against white supremacy is global. And when I'm saying white supremacy I'm not saying it's us against white people. White people are fighting white supremacy. It's not me. I don't hate white people. I hate white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? So I was going through this same fight. I was having the same fights. I was trying to get away from XJW, but I go into this group and just dealing, trying to find my culture and my roots, because we weren't allowed that when we were Jehovah's Witnesses. So the more I learn about my African roots, my Native roots, and all that kind of stuff, it's like I have people trying to tone police me and shut me up and stuff. And so I met Emily, and I don't want to.
I'm sorry that happened, Josh.
But Emily, and me, she's having the same fight. There's what I'm trying to say is there's other people just in society. It's not just about XJW, and that's when I realized it's all one struggle to me. Black Lives Matter, Me Too, sexism, talking about homophobia and all that. It's just really all one fight. It's all one struggle. None of us are free until we're all free. So I have Bree here. I don't know if she wants to be put on camera. I'll ask her. She's also Puerto Rican, and she's white passing, and she was adopted. And I'll let her tell the story if she wants. But she was adopted. She didn't know anything about her Puerto Rican roots. So she comes into one of those groups, and they're telling her, get the fuck out of here, you're white. You know what I'm saying? So I'm telling you, look, I'm Black. I'm in the same struggle. People trying to deny me my existence, whether it's an XJW or whatever. And I see you in the backstage, Bree. Do you want to come on camera to say yes or no? Hold on, I see you talking, so I'm going to add you.
Yeah.
Hey, Bree.
Hey, this is important stuff. So it's
yeah.
great.
So welcome. I was just kind of bragging about you and about Emily. So one of the things that I kind of I don't know, this is kind of happening organically, but I just would like to, one of the things that we need as XJW sometimes, I think, is we need to really like branch out to other groups, other movements, and have solidarity. Because I've gotten to know Scientologists, Amish, you know, like Black Lives Matter protesters, LGBTQ community. And, you know, we start talking and it's like, you know what? We're not that special. We're all struggling with the same things.
Exactly.
But I'll let Bree introduce herself real quick.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Bree. I was born into an Afro-Puerto Rican family, but I am white. I actually, growing up, I was adopted when I was 5. And growing up, I always thought my father was Black. Just in my mind, nobody told me any different. So I would walk around telling people like, oh yeah, like I'm half Black. And people would be like, what are you talking about? No, you're not. But no one ever, my parents didn't tell me anything. Like, I just remember my father.
Black is in the bones.
So dark. And then finally, when I entered high school, my parents were like, oh no, you're Puerto Rican. And I was like, what? I have no idea. And then they're like, yeah, you're Puerto Rican and you're half Irish. Turns out I'm not even half Irish, by the way. But, you know, then I wanted to take Spanish in high school. And they're like, well, why don't you take French instead? I didn't like me trying to explore my heritage and my ancestry and my ethnicity. It didn't fit their narrative, if that makes sense.
When you say there, are you speaking about your parents?
My adoptive parents.
I'm sorry?
My adoptive parents.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I didn't know if you meant society, like teachers or the ones that raised you. Sorry.
No, you're good. And so about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with this genetic disorder called Herminski Puddle syndrome. It's a very rare genetic disorder, which causes, it's found predominantly in people of Puerto Rican descent, specifically in northwestern Puerto Rico, where a lot of my family is from. And it causes a form of albinism in people. So you think albinism, okay, you think white skin, white hair, you know, all of that.
Is albinism like albino?
Yeah, there's different types of albinism, and I had no idea about that.
Oh, wow.
And like I've showed Josh pictures of like my siblings and stuff. My brother looks straight up like African, really. You know, my 2 eldest brothers, they could be white passing.
Is this biological siblings?
Yeah, my biological siblings. And then my 2 younger siblings are extremely dark. So I found out that I am Puerto Rican and Cuban, with ancestry and DNA stemming from Portugal, Spain, Africa, and indigenous communities. And so, you know, in high school, I joined La Familia, Hispanic club for, you know, people in school, and I got laughed out because I was pale. I didn't speak Spanish. My last name was Ashman. I have a white family.
Gosh, so you didn't fit the criteria they were looking for.
But I also, I didn't feel like I fit in with the white people either, you know?
Sure.
That makes sense, even though I am white. And, you know, it took me a while to like realize the difference between like race, ethnicity, ancestry, all of that. Because for a while, like after I found out I was Puerto Rican and stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm like a person of color. Like I'm pale, but I'm a person of color. And I realized how wrong that is now. I'm a white woman who comes from, you know, African, indigenous, and European descent. That is how I'm supposed to identify, because I didn't grow up with, you know, the same struggles that my siblings did. It kind of makes me sad in a way. I'm pale, I'm white. I was adopted when I was 5. My other siblings who were dark aged out of the foster care system. They did not have happy lives. And so I also feel like this kind of guilt and stuff because I had this advantage because my whiteness.
Well, how confusing for you. I can't imagine, because you do identify, but because you don't fall under the same pressures, if your skin was darker, your own community is saying you don't qualify.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See, people like us, like we don't fit into any mold. And so, like, you know, like, so I understand some of the anger and frustration with, you know, darker skinned Black people, because I'm not really a light skinned Black person. But, like, you know, when I start saying I'm biracial, I'm mixed, or if I start saying I'm Latino, it just sounds like to African Americans like, oh, you're just trying to, like, you know, lessen the fact that you're Black, or you just, you know, they take it as like you're denying your Blackness.
Wow.
That's not it. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you realize that the Caribbean and Latin America accounts for like 85% of like the slaves that were dropped off during the transatlantic slave trade? It was only 5% of us that landed in the United States. Latin America is thousands of times more Black than even African America. You know what I'm saying? Wow. You know, so it's like, by us saying, you know, but we are indigenous. We have, just like there's African people in the United States that have Cherokee in them, that have whatever. It's like, I'm not trying to deny my Blackness, you know, but I have different doesn't mean I'm saying I'm better. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, no matter what I'm mixed with, what the cops see is a Black man.
Yep. Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so no matter what she's mixed with, and even though she got a Black heart, Black soul, she knows whatever, you know what I'm saying? She's white passing. What people see is whiteness.
How
so
would
at no fault of her own or Emily's own, you know, they are acknowledging that I do have privileges, not because of my I asked for this, but there's certain things that I could do that I don't have to worry about that maybe my sibling can't do. You see what I'm saying? So, like, I was telling her, I says, look, I'm here as a Black man to tell you, like, I understand your pain from a different perspective, because then, you know, we're dragged by the African American community because they're like, you ain't Black, you Spanish, or you Latino, or if we try to say we Black, like, why are you trying to say you Black? If we don't say we're Black, we're like, oh, you fronting, you trying to act like you're not Black. And then we're definitely not Latino enough, because Latinos want to be white so bad sometimes, you know what I'm saying? We were so colonized. So it's like, I'm not even welcome in my own Latino community a lot of times because I'm dark skinned. I'm definitely not welcome because I'm not white. I'm in the XJW community. I'm not welcome in the XJW community because I'm talking about Black Lives Matter. They're like, that doesn't belong here. So where the fuck do I belong? You know what I mean? So what I have to do is
right where you are, Josh. Right,
I create my own spaces.
You are.
All of us have to create our own spaces. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
and that is the reality.
Look at us here now. We're all together. We're all, you know, speaking our truth.
So,
you know, so that's why
how would you all describe indigenous people? I assume smaller groups of people. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but doesn't necessarily. I don't know that would even be accurate.
I'll agree. Or Emily. Emily, is your mic working yet?
Yeah, it's working. It's
working. Okay.
I was about to say that, like, for me personally, like, I may have so much stuff in my, like, my ancestry or my genetic makeup and stuff, but really, I feel like I was put on this earth to deconstruct stuff. Like, it's really easy for someone like me to just grasp onto something in order to, like, get away from my privilege and get away from my responsibility as someone who's white in America. But really sometimes I think it helps me get by, honestly, knowing that, like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe this is kind of toxic, I don't know, but maybe like whatever God that does exist maybe put me in this situation to learn some lessons about, like, deconstructing yourself from and knowing how to do it without, like, trying to find any excuse for it. It's a really big spiritual matter to me. And so the more it's almost like I'm intentionally have been put in a place where I I don't have anything, like you say, you don't have anywhere to go. You're not specifically placed anywhere specific, but that might be a good thing. It might be an exercise in learning, you know what I'm saying, and knowing how to really deconstruct things. Because if you're biased, then a lot of it is bias. We all have bias. So the bias was created in me being adopted and put in foster care. Also, you're growing up with certain biases, you know, religious and also racial. Although for some reason I was able to pick up on the religious biases before I was able to pick up on the racial stuff, because that stuff is, I don't know how to explain it, but it's even more of a, like, so even though I grew up in a very fundamentalist group, I could still question my faith as long as I never gave it up, if that makes sense. But you can't question at all, like, things about racial disparities in that kind of environment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to disparage like racial stuff like that if you're not, like, it's like I was saying earlier, talking to the right people who don't know how to communicate, you know, because a lot of people, they don't know how to talk to each other. They put the go ahead.
I said I sure do not know how to communicate. That's why I spent a lot of time trying to learn. And
well, it's easy. It's easy. Let me just. It's like this. Basically, you got to be just willing to hear the other person out and actually think about what they say, and then respond to what they say after that. That's literally it. The thing is that it sounds really easy, but it's not. Especially if somebody's saying something that's crazy and off the wall, because if you're talking to somebody who's not willing to take the steps to actually try to get to an exchange of information, you know what I mean? The conversation really ain't going nowhere, and it's probably not a conversation you want to have with too much longer. But if you are interacting with somebody who is trying to actually exchange information, they're trying to tell you something, you're trying to tell them something, then you guys can actually have a communication. But if somebody's trying to win an argument, there's no need to really...
You're talking past each other, right?
Exactly. So nobody's going to gain any information. Nobody's going to benefit. If anything, once the conversation is over, you're going to just have two angry people. You know what I mean? So,
well, I have to say,
you got to be able to talk. You got to be able to...
She don't know how to communicate, but she is a spitfire.
I'm sure.
Some people online down that come with that foolishness, you know, and I've been able to have a nice rapport. And like I don't have any issues, you know, or a stigma. Like I own up. I do suffer from mental illness. I have PTSD, anxiety, depression because of my JW upbringing, and plus just growing up in the hood. Because I went through a phase in my teens, early 20s. I was out there gangbanging and hustling and doing all that, and then I came back to Jehovah. You know, so like I got some issues.
So you took the teenage respite that I did, I guess.
Yeah. So, but I wasn't locked up like 8 times. I ain't the godmother like you.
What the gangster? What the gangster?
You know what I'm saying?
But yo, before I go, because I gotta go make my kids some lunch. I appreciate y'all for having this, and this has been very good for me. I know y'all gonna continue and stuff, but I
hope you could come on again.
Yeah.
I want to do a regular weekly thing, and again, it doesn't always have to be so heavy, you know. But we're just getting acquainted, and it's just something that's there.
Yeah, if we're gonna talk, we're gonna talk. It's gonna go whatever way it go. You know what I mean? But
I got some funny stuff. I want you to like talk about some old stuff, like that brother that was like on the down low, like gay, but nobody ever really could say it, and he used to run around like this. Yo, every hall has one of those, man. I want to talk about that. So
next time I got you.
I'll send the invites for.
All right, for sure. If I'm free, I'll do it. Sometimes I'll be busy, but today I was free.
Man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for the invite. What you about to say, Shannon?
I was just going to say, Jay, the comedian, do you do a show somewhere? Or are you online? Or
well, right now I'm not doing nothing. I'm quarantined. I'm locked down. But when it comes back, I'm online.
He's a YouTuber.
Because
Yeah, I'm a
laughter
YouTuber. I
really
make YouTube
is the
videos.
best medicine. So
Yeah, that's what my entire
maybe
YouTube
request
channel
me or
is about.
something, because I definitely, yesterday I got really disappointing news, you know, down in the dumps, and I have my emotional toolbox, and I pulled out an old thing from Ellen DeGeneres and was crying. I was laughing so hard, and I got over the disappointment, and I'm just dealing with what is. So
Check out my YouTube channel. That's what my entire YouTube channel is about. Just
and
Jay
it's
the
Jay the comedian.
Yeah, just check it
Okay,
out.
I
And
will.
that's pretty much what 90% of my videos are about. Just like bringing a comedic light to growing up as a Jehovah Witness and trying to help people, because I've learned that once you reach the point to where you can laugh at something, that's when you're truly over it.
Yeah, his
So
channel is
like
all
that's what I
about,
try to do.
like, he talks about deep and heavy stuff, you know, just like Cedars and all this stuff, but like it's always like lighthearted and from a black perspective, but he's not talking about he black, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you know, it's just funny, and you know, it just like, it's just good to see representation, you know what I'm saying? For me.
When I
you know?
went to the Leah Remini show, I live in Kansas City.
I love her.
There was a gal that I had known that she left, and she lives out in Laguna Beach. So after the Leah Remini show, they literally allowed their car person, you know, you have all these people taking care of you, took me to meet her, and I got to stay with her for a couple days. And she gets up on stage and does these comedian skits. And when she's blowing up Jehovah's Witnesses, I felt she was way bolder and brave than me, Leah Remini, because everyone knows what they're going to come across if they watch that show. You didn't know what was going to come out of her mouth. So I just totally applaud that. That's very
for sure.
And, you know, not everyone may get it, but those of us that do, we truly, truly get it.
Oh, yeah. Check it out.
I'll
Let
be
me know what you
looking
think.
up.
All right. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good one, okay?
All right, brother, man.
Peace.
Bree was kind of gonna answer your question about what does indigenous really mean.
Yes.
And I was, you know, I want her to be able to like give her perspective, because Emily got to talk a little bit. So I don't know if Bree's willing. You want to kind of like answer that, like, you know. And again, like I feel like I know what indigenous is, and I have my own personal like ideas about it. But like with everything like we've been speaking, you know, I'm also learning. You know, so I don't want to act like I can speak for the whole indigenous community. But
sure,
like,
I only have an idea, and I'm sure it's not
Well,
accurate. So
I mean, I know what it is, but like, you know, I want to give Bria an opportunity to kind of explain where she's at with that. How does she identify as being indigenous?
I'm honestly still on the journey right now, trying to figure out like what it means to me. I'm actually going to Puerto Rico in 3 weeks for 8 days.
It's beautiful. I've been there.
I'm going by myself. I'm staying in 3 different cities, and it's just a solo soul searching identity trip that I'm taking.
Those are the best.
Just to try to figure out who the fuck I am, honestly. Like, I feel like I've had all these different identities thrown at me throughout the course of my lifetime, and I'm just so confused, you know? Really, the only identifying thing I have, I'm a mom. That's how I identify.
Yeah, me too.
I don't have a sense of who I am right now, if that makes sense. I mean, I know that's kind of sad to say, but it's the truth.
It's good though. I'm being forced to, and that could be part of the universal message. My 2 daughters, you know, I try to think of everything, not just ex-Jehovah's Witness, but as a universal reason for things happening. And I wrote in the chat, I literally, when I was 5 and I was watching my mom, I'm watching Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm being taught a specific way. I'm totally different than the kids at school. I just begged God to help me know peace and love and take people's pain away so we could all be happy. And, you know, it's a lot harder than that, as we all know, but a lot of that I brought on myself. It's like I really chose that dimensional curve and I'm living it. So why am I so angry and mad when things are going wrong? I feel like I'm here to try to dig deeper, just like you guys are. I need to go to those dark places, understand why it hurts, why it's unfair, why a human would treat someone this way, regardless of what it has to do with.
Right.
Why can't we all be in a similar loving space, you know, that's unconditional? They talk about unconditional love, but even out here, it's hard to find. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
So like for me, and you know, you could, Google's your friend. You could always just Google what this is. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But indigenous means that you're native to the land.
You're native what?
You're native to the land.
Oh, okay.
I feel
So-
I've always felt so connected to nature and to just being outside and earthly roots.
That's part of being an empath, though. I'm like that.
Right, but see, a lot of people talk about being an empath, and they have these terms like New Age theology and love and light and law of attraction. But really, for indigenous people, that's just our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Native people, Native Americans, or just indigenous people, like, that's not New Age to us. That's ancient age.
Right.
These are practices and things that we've had that has been appropriated, by other people.
So appropriate.
And so, like, when you want to talk about being earth-based,
Mm-hmm.
like the native, Arawak people of the Caribbean, that sometimes people label them as Taino, for example, like a lot of people don't realize there's millions of Puerto Ricans in the world, in the United States, Dominicans, Cubans. Nobody thinks of them as Native Americans, Mexicans.
You want to know why?
They're the Native Americans. This is they're indigenous to the land, going back thousands of years. We're native to the land. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else came here and colonized the land. So when we say indigenous, we're just native to the land. Now, then there's a caveat to that. When people migrate, because we all migrated from somewhere else, like you either came from the Africa or the Amazon basin, right? Going up, through, South America, Brazil, the Yucatan Peninsula, into Mexico, into what's now known as America, okay? At some point, when your ancestry is in a certain place, generation after generation after generation, then at some point, you're also indigenous to the land, because that's where your generations of your people have been, even if they migrated to another. So there's different layers to what it means to be indigenous. The thing is, because of white supremacy, our indigenous identities have been ripped from us. Not only do Puerto Rican
erase us, so we're Latino, we're Hispanic, we're not indigenous, because it was their goal to get rid of all indigenous people when they came over, whether it was from disease. I mean, killing us from disease was just an extra awesome thing for them. They weren't expecting that.
Even going back to the whole pilgrims, acting like they discovered America. I still can't believe a group of people that just happenstance got on a boat and landed here think they've discovered something that was already being lived on.
Okay, so I'm going to dissect what you just said. I'm going to just dissect what you said. You said some pilgrims that by happenstance discovered America. Like, and in your mind, and I'm not jumping on you or anything like that, but in your mind, when you say that, these pilgrims that by happenstance discovered America, who are you talking about?
I'm thinking Christopher Columbus, but I do believe he had.
But Christopher Columbus wasn't the pilgrim.
Find it, huh?
So this is a thing that we have to go through as indigenous people. Christopher Columbus was 1492.
Right.
Almost 500 years ago.
1606 was the Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims was 200 and something years later.
1606.
Okay, I didn't know.
When we talk about, when we think about Native Americans and Indians and people that were genocide, in white supremacy, in the mind of many people, they think of the Pilgrims that came from England here.
Okay.
But our genocide happened about 200 and something years prior, when Christopher Columbus came to America.
And that's what I thought, but I didn't realize there was.
No, I'm not jumping on you, but I'm saying, I'm just highlighting a point. Christopher Columbus never set one foot in America, in the country. He went to the Caribbean. He never set one foot in the United
I
States.
didn't even freaking know that. Wow.
Only
He landed in the Bahamas, in Hispaniola, Haiti, Dominican Republic. You know, renamed all these islands
Wow.
because Dominican Republic is not the Dominican Republic. It's an indigenous country called Quisqueya. Puerto Rico was just like the second stop, I believe. You know, after Hispaniola. You know, he arrived in Puerto Rico in 1493. You know, a year later. So the people that got it the worst, as far as erasure and genocide and killing of the Native Americans, were what you call Latinos. It wasn't the Wampano,
which would have been more on the islands.
Yes, and I'm not lessening what happened to like the Cherokee and all that. It's horrible.
That was England and France.
But nobody even thinks of us as indigenous people or Native Americans. You think about the northern tribes that got like reservations and blood quantum cards. None of us have blood quantum cards. Millions of Mexicans or Puerto Ricans. I mean, some of us do. So like, you want to talk about erasure? Like, that's erasure. You know, nobody thinks about the Caribbean or Cuba or these places. That's where Columbus went and just wiped out with disease and with their guns and with their raping and just like smashing children, babies, ripping pregnant mothers. I mean, I'm not going to get into detail.
It just amazes me that
it happened to us and nobody talks about it. And it's not talked about.
Totally.
And Christopher Columbus translates blog. He talks about raping an 8-year-old indigenous woman on the islands, how she dug her claws into his back. I mean, it was so graphic. And he brags about it in his captain's log.
Wow.
But they go into detail about how when the Tainos when the natives wouldn't like come back with gold, because they like took, you know, Puerto Rico didn't have as much gold as like some other places. When the gold ran out, or when the natives just couldn't work anymore, when they were dying from the diseases and stuff, and when they would show up empty-handed, they would chop off their hands. When Columbus landed, and the natives there, they weren't used to like metal working and ceramics and stuff. So when they drew their swords, they tried to shake the hands of the swords. They didn't realize that they were gonna get cut. That's how they saved Columbus' life. Columbus called it, they called them Indians because they thought they were shipwrecking in India. They got lost. And the natives...
Now that I have heard.
Natives like rescued them, brought them in, and saved their lives.
Yeah.
And they turned around and nursed them back to health. And the Columbus and his men built a garrison out of the shipwrecked wood vessel and camped there and, you know, enslaved the people, murdered, raped, did all this stuff, came back. And then they called it, they claimed it as a territory for the Queen of England, you know.
In the name of Christ.
Queen of Spain, Queen Isabella of Spain, excuse me. So, you know, all that happened to us. And so not only are we, and then when the natives died off, and I'm kind of giving you a fast forward Cliff Notes version of everything.
No, it's wonderful that you
natives were
have all
almost
this
genocided. That's when they brought the African slaves, because they almost wiped out all the, like, there's accounts where like what they call the Tainos was like, let's say in Dominican Republic was like, I don't know how many million, it was down to like a few hundred left. And they brought in the African slaves to replenish that. So not only are we disconnected, we don't know our tribe from Africa, you know, our language, our original
so you do know that you have African ancestors, right?
So we are.
Not every
person
does, do they?
We don't know. We're disconnected culturally from our African roots, and we're definitely disconnected from our native roots.
So I know blood quantum has like lots of issues in the community. People use blood quantum to be like, yes, see, I am, you know, Taino or indigenous. And then other people are like, you shouldn't be using blood quantum. Blood quantum doesn't make you what you are.
What is blood quantum? I'm lost.
You know, these people that say, you know, the government says, you know,
So does it matter or does it not matter? It's a catch-22 with blood quantum, and it's really fucked up, honestly. Because
when people say I'm native, I have an ID card that says I'm native. I'm 1%, 2%, you know, Cherokee. So that means I'm
like
entitled.
my ex was 1/8%, and he could.
Shit like that,
We
like-
always knew if we lost everything, we could go to this reservation in Oklahoma, and he'd have some benefits.
Is he white passing? Is he white passing?
Oh yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
so-
but he's
Yeah,
an
we don't get
Indian.
we don't get blood quantum cards. You could be
His
indigenous
mother
as
has one,
fuck.
and she is blonde and blue-eyed. It's crazy. She never used any of those benefits, but she was technically 1/4 Indian, and you would never in a million years know it.
so I got a few DNA tests done just because I was curious.
I'm gonna do that. I wrote that down today, and here we're talking about all this. How
Like it
interesting.
says I'm like 22% African, 20% indigenous, and then like 60% or like 58% Spanish and Portuguese. You know? And
Question. Just because, okay, when someone says they're African, I've always wondered this. Does that necessarily mean that they have blackness in their history?
I don't say I'm African,
Kids are black, are they?
but because see, there's people who are like on these like indigenous groups that I'm on that post that they're 20% African, like 20% indigenous, but they look so African and so indigenous. And here I am, pretty much straight down the middle, being half Afro-Indigenous and half white, and I'm white. But I don't.
But does African mean blackness? Or is it just the
It
country?
should. It should mean
It's
blackness,
good,
but
okay.
remember,
I'm
Shannon.
Oh, in my head, but I wasn't certain.
But we got to remember, and a lot of black people got to think about this. You know, Africa was colonized
Mm-hmm.
by the Dutch, by the Portuguese, you know, by the French.
I mean the English. Hello, man.
So like I see these white people like from South Africa. Well, I'm white from Africa, so why can't I say I'm African American? No, your ancestors colonized Africa and came up with
that's the
apartheid
difference. Gotcha.
from Europe. You know what I'm saying?
So it
Whereas
makes
an
sense.
African was native to Africa.
And then to compound on that, like I said, I don't want to harp too much on this because these are like very deep, like long conversations and a lot of research. Africa is not even the indigenous name of Africa.
Okay.
Africa is a European name named after a Roman general named Africanus, something like that. So that's not even the indigenous name of the continent. It's Kemet is the real name of Africa. You know, just like Puerto Rico, Kemet.
Kemet.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is not the name of the island, it's Borican. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry,
So-
mailman's here.
Hey, really quick, I have a moderator on here, Pedro. You want to just say hello real quick? You don't have to be on camera.
Hello guys, how you doing?
Good.
Great to hear the conversation. Very productive and educational at the same time.
Yeah, he's let me just tell you real quick about Pedro. He reached out to me on the 6 screens, right? Pedro is an ex-JW who left in the 80s. Literally, since he's left the organization, well, I'll let him tell his story if he feels like it. Long story short, he taught himself and was taught by actual like Jewish scholars that work in Israel that like actually curate the Dead Sea Scrolls and preserve them, like people that really know what they're talking about.
Wow.
And he learned biblical Hebrew. He is he knows more than any like JW scholar or whatever. Like, I mean, he's very humble. He doesn't talk about that, but he speaks biblical Hebrew fluently, like the way we speak, you know. So, you know, he's still a believer, you know, more on the like Judaism spectrum. Well, he's a Christian or whatever, but that goes without saying. The reason I'm mentioning him because he's like a repository of like archaeological knowledge and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So when I first left, I was still like a believer, you know, and I was still trying to hold on to my Christianity and stuff like that. I don't consider myself Christian anymore, you know, but like he helped me like navigate through like the watchtower bullshit and you know, learn a lot, you know what I'm saying? And he's still very, like you said, he's educational. He's open to learning more about his indigenous roots and everything because he's also Puerto Rican. But I'm saying that since the 80s, since he's left the organization, he's probably like helped like probably a couple hundred people leave the JWs, and not really online, just from like people like going to his door trying to convert him. And you know, he helped me a lot. So like we've been friends for like 5-6 years. So I don't know if you just want to introduce yourself, for like Sharon stepped away, but maybe for anybody that might watch the stream afterwards.
Yeah, I tend not to get into my past a little bit, not because I'm afraid to or anything. Is that I have a philosophy. I respect where people are at in their personal journeys.
Right.
And every journey is distinct and unique. And you have to respect where they are. Now, if they come to me and ask a question, I have a problem, that I'll answer it. But I never impose anything on people. My views on anybody. My mom says, don't never answer a question unless you're asked. You know? So you avoid trouble that way. That way you don't project like, oh, you're Mr. Know-it-all. No, I'm still learning. One thing you learn in the academic world is that you don't know nothing. We're students, we're learning, we're constantly learning. And that's what makes life interesting, is the learning process, the journey of learning. So.
Yeah, so like I said, he's very modest. I feel bad that Bree left. I just had one more thing I wanted to talk about with Bree. I don't know if she's listening, she could come back, because she's saying she's going to Puerto Rico. And I wanted to give her a few like tips and heads up about going to the island somewhat. But, you know, hopefully I'll be able to, talk to her a little bit more if she could come back on. But yeah, so, I was talking before about like the whole mental illness thing. So like that's a big struggle, not only, like I said, in the XJW community, Scientology, Mormonism, whatever, when you're coming out of high control groups, dissociative disorder and
it's a very real thing.
That seems to be like the top two things people leave in a cult, because we have to live a life of like several identities, and even in the organization, they talk about living a double life, for navigating being your Jehovah's Witness self versus your authentic self versus the self you have to be when you're interacting in the world. So that's something I've had to deal with, Shannon.
Yeah, it's very hard to figure out who you are after all those identity crises mixed in.
And then just like you've talked, you had a window into dealing with all of our like, fractured identities, being indigenous, being black, being white passing, whatever. So, Emily and I have, helped each other in self-care and when we're like, having a manic time, and you've helped me and I've helped you, and me and Pedro have helped each other, when we have crazy thoughts, being suicidal or whatever. I was hospitalized twice because I was at risk, and the scary thing about, suicide is like, a lot of the times, and I learned this, the people that wind up successfully taking their own lives, it's a lot of times the people that you wouldn't think would do something like that. And even they themselves wouldn't think they have like the guts or the ability to do that. That's how dangerous those thoughts are. Like you would never think, like when I was first diagnosed as bipolar 1, I mean, I've come a long way. It was pressed upon me, and that's when I was going to NAMI. Like those thoughts, you got to really make sure you're talking to somebody and you're doing self-care, because you could really,
and that's the hard
you're not
part.
in your right mind, you could really hurt yourself. Even though you don't think you want to hurt yourself. And that's why we
need help. And it's, for me, I think the hardest thing is we've lost our entire community. For me, I thought I was rebuilding a new community out here, only to find that many of these people are fractured and they don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to be a friend. Therefore, I've given myself away to help others because I know what it is to hurt. I've gone through, depression and suicidal tries, but there's not many out here that really know how to be present for another, just to be comforting, to let someone just talk. Like I said earlier, you don't have to have answers. But I tell you what, if someone gives me their ear for 5 minutes to just let off all the emotions going through my brain, I start to feel human again. I haven't found answers. I haven't been pressured to find them, but I've been heard. Sometimes that's all we need. And listening when it was you, Emily, you were talking about communication. Communication has many sides. And the fact that you're a listener is one of the best pieces of communication. You've probably given a gift to many people that you don't even realize by allowing them to just talk. And that's huge.
I've noticed that listening is the best thing I can do. Although there are those times where I realize, my communication can get messed up, especially if I'm in a dark place and my mind is in a state of it doesn't matter. So I feel like I become this Joker type person that just is crazy off.
I go there too.
Like maniac type person. And what I realize is knowing it's not good to communicate. Need someone to listen to. If you're in
it's not good, what?
I've realized that you can't personally. I've been someone who communicates and has said hurtful things because I didn't realize that I'm needing to have someone listen to me too.
Yes.
So but then I go off a wall. So then I should have been taking a step back. And
how old are you, Emily? May I ask?
26. So
that is something that will come with growth and experience.
Right. Yeah.
It will.
And it's hard when you have mental health issues. But
sure.
Then, one of the trippiest things that I'm trying to mentally wrap my hand around right now is the fact that we are pushing now. We're pushing mental health as the in thing to do. Now it's becoming a little bit more socially acceptable in general society to need therapy and go to therapy.
Thank goodness.
Going to therapy, except there isn't the material. It's not materialized. People say that it's really good to have therapy, really good to go get your mental health taken care of. I agree, everybody needs it, but at the same time, it's the services aren't there. So, what are we supposed to do? Because
the one thing I've learned,
we do peer support. You don't have to be a therapist to be supportive of each other.
That's true.
That's what
I have also learned. The peer support is huge, and especially if you're with NAMI, I did the In Your Own Voice. That's something that it helps build you up as you give your story, but you also get to hear stories. You get to hear other perspectives from individuals. But one thing I've learned over time, and this is age too, is to have my own personal emotional toolbox. Because in reality, I'm the only one that's going to be with myself 24/7. I give myself permission when I'm down when I'm feeling empty, I literally know to pat my heart, to hug myself, to breathe, and to allow the pain for one day. I'll tell myself, you can feel hurt and wallow in it for a day. And then, the following day, you're going to get up, you're going to dust your boots off, and you're going to go forward. And I have lots of things in my toolbox, whether it's something to read, or I get out something to color, or I have certain shows I'll watch to get me in a higher state, which is usually something comedic. And I also give myself a permission to listen to a sappy song and cry and bawl for an hour if I want to. I don't have social support of any kind. Even when I broke my foot last year for 14 weeks, I was crawling around my living room trying to get myself stuff to eat. And yet I never missed a day of work. And I don't know how I did it. And it's my bad times. I'll think back on, how did I get through homelessness? Wow. How did I survive having my best friend marry my husband? Wow. How did I make it through not getting to hear my child's voice for over 11 years? Remind yourself of what you have done. And so you do have to be your support system, but you also have to be able to allow yourself the uncomfortableness and know you can get through it. It's an odd, and it's only been in the last 2 to 3 years, and I'm 54, that I've been able to get to that mental state. So it's a process.
And you do an awesome job. And you know, one thing is this what you just described is like can be part of somebody else's toolkit now.
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do. Like, and I realize, you know, a lot of times when in the beginning we were talking about like all the landmines that we have to like navigate and hit, you know, being a person of color in the XJW community, I tend to just wear my heart on my sleeve. And after like a few weeks of doing the activism or a few months, I get so angry, upset, or I feel betrayed. Because, you know, hurt people tend to hurt other people.
And I want to feel that revenge. But
I'm guilty of it. It's been done to me, I do it to other people. And what I do is I think the answer is to just back away from all of it. And you know what? There's people that just say, you know, it's not for me, and they just totally back away from the XJW community or any of this stuff. And I respect that. Sometimes that's what you have to do. But I realize that part of my toolkit is moderating spaces like this, is creating the groups, and it is connecting with people. That's what
it's a valuable thing, Josh.
So like, why should I allow that, like the disappointments to stop me from like, okay, I'm not friends with this person anymore, but this person, I feel betrayed, or you know, my trust was broken with that person. I was like, I'm starting to realize, well, you said you wanted to live in the real world, right? You said you wanted to, you know, that's what the real world is. That's what human beings do.
Yeah,
so,
we asked for it.
Right. So now I realize, okay, I can't bottle that in. And like, for instance, this was spontaneous. Like, I didn't know Emily was going to come on. I didn't know you was going to come on. I didn't know Jay was going to come on. You know what I'm saying? You know, when I try too hard to bring people together, it seems it doesn't work. But when I just do it, beautiful things happen.
I'll tell you why I answered is because I felt it a safe place. I felt it comfortable. There was no agenda. I think just, and it was spontaneous. I mean, obviously you gave us a little bit of notice, but I didn't want to be interviewed. I didn't want to watch someone's interview. I just wanted to create space with other human beings because I'm very lonely and frustrated, just like.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah, and I want to understand that others are going through.
It's just interesting to see celebrities and everybody talking about how lonely they are and how disconnected they are, you know, with the pandemic. And I know you got
actually did pretty good because I'm used to it.
Yeah, welcome to our world as cult survivors. You know what I'm saying? This is what we do. But so I thank you for coming here. But Bree, I think, might be having to go. But before you go, Bree, can I put you on camera, Bree, or no?
Not right now.
Okay, but you can hear us, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Pedro, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, there's something specific I want us to do, especially me and you, Pedro. And there's a reason why I'm asking Pedro. So Bree is just an amazing person that's a warrior just like me out there, those indigenous roots, if you want to call them Taino or whatever, those African roots. She has two spirits with her, you know, her Indian and she has her African with her, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that even as a joking. The more we get to know each other, you know, you'll realize that goes back to our traditions as indigenous people. So you have your spirits with you right now.
Always.
I want to tell you, like this is something I'm gonna try to impart to you, because I know a lot of times you feel like, as a Boricua that wasn't really raised around the culture, like I feel like sometimes you worry about if you're gonna be accepted, or how hard is this trip gonna be when you go to Puerto Rico to learn our culture. And I just want, I know you've learned a lot and you've been around, but like I know we've talked about a lot of the negative things about being biracial or being Boricua or Native and stuff. But I'm gonna tell you about like the beautiful aspect about being who we are as Puerto Ricans, Boricuas, Tainos, whatever you want to call us, Latinx people. One of the beautiful things about Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans is that even with all the little petty things that we could talk about sometimes, Caribbean people, especially Puerto Ricans, I know I'm a little biased because I'm Puerto Rican, but we tend to be very, very, very accepting people. Okay? And okay, we have this like in the Caribbean and even in Latin America, in the coastal areas, we have like this similar thing where we're mixed with Black, European, and Native. We all have that. But Puerto Ricans, for me, take it a step further because it's just natural. Like for Puerto Ricans, we go into all the spaces. We marry into the white culture, we assimilate to the white culture, to the Black culture, to the Asian culture. We Puerto Ricans are like rice and beans. We mix with everything, you know what I'm saying? And part of like our music, our salsa that we've really inherited mainly from the Cubans too, but we contributed our bomba music. It's they call it salsa. It's a mix because just in our music, salsa is a mix of not only like the African and the indigenous instruments and music. It's also influenced by African religion. It's got European flamencos dancing, disco dancing from the 70s, jazz. It has influence from Holland. A lot of people don't know that, you know what I'm saying? Our bomba music, there's even a beat called Hollandes. So what I'm trying to tell you is you're going to find, I don't want you to feel too, I don't know if you feel this, but Boricuas, even though a lot of times it's bullshit, but we have a saying in Puerto Rico, that it's a little different than when white people say that we don't see color. Like in Puerto Rico, we say we're not Black, we're not Latino, we're not, a lot of times we say we Boricuas, And so in Cuba, they have a version of that. They call it Cubanidad. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to see such a mix of people when you go to Puerto Rico. Nobody's going to be looking at you like, are you sure you're supposed to be here? Are you white? Like you're just going to look like a Puerto Rican. And a Puerto Rican doesn't look like anything because we're like literally all the races. Like, I'm going to let Pedro talk about that. Like, when you're around a lot of Puerto Ricans, after a while, even if you have been treated the way we've treated, I personally feel like a lot of times I start forgetting about that because Boricuas, we just have a certain swag and a certain way about ourselves. Hey. So when you go to Puerto Rico, just enjoy it, talk to the people, whatever. And there's a lot of Puerto Ricans that don't even realize that they're indigenous too. They don't know about this like Arawak, but they do know Boricua, even though they don't realize they're talking like that's indigenous language. And the food, the pasteles, all the things you're gonna enjoy, learn from the culture, enjoy it, and then go back on Wikipedia because even a lot of people that are making the pasteles and the arroz con gandules, they don't even know that a lot of that comes from Africa either, but they know that they're Boricua. So like like this is my own personal opinion. Like people that look like you, to me, kind of get accepted a little quicker than people like me even. As being Puerto Rican, because people are used to seeing like the J-Lo type or, like the more white passing, but like you're going to see Puerto Rico is a very Black country, it's a very African country, but it's also a very European influenced country. It's just a melting pot, So like, continue what you're doing. So like, I don't know if, because I know I felt like I needed that at one time, and I was raised around the culture more than anything else. I was raised deep in the culture. You necessarily wasn't. I don't know if Pedro want to speak to that a little bit.
Nah, man, you covered that pretty good.
Oh, come on, man. Give us a little something, bro. He always does that. Pedro has been with me through thick and thin for years. Every time I try to do some stunt like this, he's always in the background. But like, just kind of, can you just give us like a minute or so of just how it is being Boricua, Puerto Rican?
Come on, Pedro, use your voice.
Okay. You know, in my experience and my culture, I was born over here. I wasn't born in Puerto Rico, but I was born in the United States over here.
Mhm.
But all my life, I've been surrounded with all types of people, all race. I grew up all, you know, with my personal experience. Yeah, I did experience some form of, you know, racism, being Puerto Rican. But for some reason, maybe because I'm autistic, my autistic brain. People that are autistic kind of focus one thing.
Mhm.
I never really focus on the racist aspect. In my brain, I said, look, I don't got time to worry about what you think about me. I got other things to worry about.
Yeah.
At least that's how my brain works. You know, now, did it affect me? Well, it depends. The question you got to ask, will you allow it to affect you?
Mm.
You're the one in control. So you can't control what other people will do to you. But you can control how you react to that, though. So my wisdom is, yeah, it is human. Nobody likes to feel deminimized. Nobody likes to feel like you're worthless, like you don't exist, like you're nothing. Okay. But you can't control that. You can't control what other people will think about you. You can't control what people may believe about you. But you can control how you react to the attitudes of other people. So you got two decisions in your life. You could either allow it to become a victim, or you can use that experience as a stepping stone and grow as a human being.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
there's
and I agree with that, and thank you for saying that, because that's very true. But my whole take on that is that's something that is words to live by, and something that we constantly hear. But I don't think there's not enough of a platform or things to be said. Yes, I know I could control how I react to it, and yes, I could allow it to build character in me, and we're constantly told that, but not enough is said about the emotional toll and a labor that it takes to have to constantly navigate that. And
go ahead.
That's just the whole other aspect that I kind of tend to focus on sometimes. And I've come to learn in my wisdom. I personally believe you can change or have an influence on people who have that closed mindset, because as Shannon said, it was a Black woman's reaction and education that she received to understand, like, hey, when I say I don't see your
open
color,
to hearing it.
that's
Not
shitty.
everyone is.
Right, not everybody's receptible to hearing it. But like example, we were ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Not everybody was receptive to learning the so-called truth, right? But at some point, they heard something that resonated with them, that impacted them, and they were open and receptive to like make changes. So God bless people like you, Shannon, and other people that were able to like change and evolve. But
And not always is our message going to be, I think most of us, our intention is to have a message of love and balance and peace for all, but that's not going to be heard by a lot of people. And
right.
We can't control that. All we do is control our reaction. When my ex married my ex-best friend, the woman had literally told me several months before. It was like, and I hadn't even been able to watch R-rated movies, but she told me she was obsessed with me. In other words, she was obsessed with my life. She wanted it, and it really was kind of like that movie. Later, I did get to see it. Long story short, once she became his wife, she was a bully to me, the mother of his daughters. And he's a soft-spoken man that I believe was probably literally shocked that she just became mean. I'd go to get my daughters, and she said something, for instance, about me losing weight. And she says, "Are you trying to look like me?" And I said, no, I needed to lose weight, so I lost it. And then she had the nerve to say, well, your belly still sucks. Because I had huge children, one of which was over 11 pounds. I told her, I said, no. I said, my stomach is beautiful. It's my badge of honor. See those beautiful girls right there? That's why I have that. In other words, I changed the direction for the information that my daughters would depose from the conversations. I could have been mean back or a victim or cried or whatever, but I chose to honor my place exactly where I am, the humanism, the human place that I held, and allow my daughters to see the difference of someone that is unhappy and still wants to attack someone in order to feel better about themselves, and someone that accepts their place, even if it's not a place that's real desirable. So fortunately, I had 2 daughters, and that's what caused me to change that tune and become more like, well, I can't control their actions, but I can control mine. And it's not going to be done with anger. It's going to be done with love, in hopes that my daughter will get that message one day, and anyone else who chooses to. It's all I can do as a human.
Well, you do a lot, and you know, one thing I don't think we've talked about, and I'm not trying to open up this whole new thread on this because we're almost wrapping it up. But one of the things I want to talk about that our white allies, you know, they are very powerful. Like, you have a power that's really like a superpower. And the reason why I say that, I'm not trying to just like patronize you or just like give you pats on the back or anything when I say that. What I'm saying is superpower is like, you have the power of white privilege and whiteness, right? And I don't mean that in a negative connotation.
No, I get it.
But being that you have that power, like literally you speaking up, like let's say if you come to a rally and you're with me, whatever, just your whiteness and being there is the difference between me getting killed by the police or not.
Yeah.
Just because you're there.
But that's a reality, yeah.
You're speaking up, or like for instance, you coming on a show like this, being the minority, right? At certain points in the flow of the show, you know, there were a few more white passing people, but for the most part, especially in the beginning, you were the only white person.
Yeah, technically, I have no black in me that I'm aware of.
Right.
But
I mean, so like you came into our space, I mean, like you said, you didn't feel threatened or whatever. But what that does, other white people watching this and seeing that you weren't, you know, in a non-safe place, seeing that, you know, crazy Josh from the internet, XJW Josh, is not like berating you and attacking you for asking questions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What that does, see, what I'm trying to say is the superpower is white people, especially white people with power that sometimes make our lives miserable, they listen and believe other white people quicker than they believe us.
I believe that.
That's
sure.
a fact. All these terms like
I'm odd that way. When it comes to all people, I come from a humanistic point of view. I even had a conversation with a man not long ago who was talking about how a man walks into a bar, he looks around and he sees the women, those he'd fuck, those he'd marry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? I said, because I personally, and this is my truth, and I realize it's not what a lot of people have. I look at all people at the bar. I look to see who might be talkative, who might be outgoing, who might be intelligent, who might have a funny story, who might I enjoy speaking with, who might I learn something from. That's how I view people, regardless of color or, you know, male, female, young.
And that's awesome that you're that way, but like this
I realize that's not common though.
You know, this environment that you volunteered to, you know, just offer to be in, where you're like outnumbered, that's how we feel every day all the time. We're in a world where we're outnumbered, and things we could say or our mannerisms, the way we carry ourselves could affect whether if we're going to jail that day, whether we're gonna get fired from work. You know, like we have to like
it'll just blows me away.
Yeah. And so like the superpower comes like this. When white people speak up, it helps because other white people listen. They don't really listen to us usually like that. So like all these terms we've been throwing around today, like white supremacy, whiteness, white privilege, and all that could be triggering. Like these terms, we didn't invent them. Like it was a white woman named Robin DiAngelo that coined that term, white privilege, who wrote a book, who's making millions of dollars, and everybody's, you know, using this terminology. It was white people that started like studying this stuff and creating these terms and putting them out there. And when they have lectures and when they talk about it, they pack stadiums. They're in Harvard. You know, people like academics study this stuff and they make more books and all this kind of stuff. And they got PhDs and people listen to them. And, you know, they're on the talking head shows and stuff like that. When black people talk about it, they're like, oh, you're being militant, or you're black, Black Lives Matter. Like, we got to work so hard, to get white people in authority to listen to us. But when other white people say it, they feel like it's legitimacy. You know what I'm saying? And then what I learned.
I know you're speaking the truth, and
what I learned,
reality.
What I learned is like, a lot of the stuff I say, I learned from watching other white people that have studied this stuff that spoke about it. Like, I didn't know what was happening, what was doing to me. I didn't know what a microaggression was. To us, that's just like white people being white people. I didn't know there was a term. What I learned. I'm sorry?
Ironically, my women heroes in life are black women, because it's always about overcoming and going through the fight. And generally it's a black woman that knows that more than a white woman, for instance. Right. So
but when the white woman speaks, like, all I'm trying to say is more people tend to listen. Unfortunately, it's not right. It shouldn't be that way. But like these women that have written these books and these white people, like there's an awesome white activist named Tim Wise. You could Google him. He rose to prominence in my mind, I think, like after Katrina. He started talking about a lot of white privilege and all this kind of stuff. The racists hate him. He's a white man. And there's a guy that's been around forever, since the 70s, 80s, named Paul Kivel. If you look at him, he's a white activist who's written books and all this kind of stuff. These guys, when you talk to those people, they'll tell you everything I'm saying I learned from either a black man or a black woman. I'm not coming up with this. I'm not extra smart. I'm not, I was doing a lot of these things that were making.
Well, you educate yourself. I mean,
but they learned it. Yeah. They learned it from black people, black activists that was doing the work, except those black activists don't get the speaking engagements and the notoriety that they get. So that's all I'm trying to say. Like, it's a privilege to have you there, but like, you have a very powerful voice, not only that you've been trained through NAMI and all this stuff, and I'm hoping that—
well, even as a Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's Witness training, the NAMI training, maybe you could help me get certified like that, and I hope we could just continue to like make it a more regular thing. I'd like to have you as a regular presenter, tell other people to come up.
It has a lot to do with my work schedule right now, and I'm trying to, I've been stuck with this house. My dad stole all the money and the car that was given to me, but left me with the house that needs tons of work. And it's like I don't have a community, so I'm trying to do it all myself and work 14 and 15-hour days. So
don't worry, we'll all be there with our air mattresses soon enough.
I tell you what, you could all show up and we'd have this done in a day.
Okay. All right, Miss Maddie, I hear you there. Is there anything you want to add? Is anybody there down there in Atlanta? Have you been listening in? Do you have any final thoughts or anything?
It's been very educational.
All right. That's Miss Maddie. That's Monique James. Mama. She's an SJW.
Listening in.
Okay, is Maylon there too, and Monique listening?
Yeah.
Monique, can you say some parting words real quick?
Mister?
Can we see you? I'm looking at your ceiling fan. Hey, Maylon. Malon, I gotta do a whole show dedicated to you, man. Malon's over there just tearing it up in Atlanta, rubbing shoulders with all the elite of the elite in the political world down there, just making moves for the Black community, for the XJW community.
Yes,
for kids. There's just so many causes. I can't keep up. I keep watching all the stuff you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna have a whole show dedicated to you. Is your mom still with us?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for listening in, man.
I am gonna have to get going. I get to decorate a birthday party tonight.
Oh, okay.
Very
you
good.
pagan, you.
Okay.
You pagan, heathen, apostate.
I know, right?
All right, so I'll just end it there. I love you. I'll be messaging you, and we'll try to come up with a time that's convenient for you. And we'll plan it out again.
I've kind of gotten off of social media because I'm tired of everyone screaming and
This
yelling.
is not social media.
For you, Josh.
This is our toolkit. This is not social media.
Absolutely. Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
social media, but you know what it is.
You're part of my tools to feel better.
Yeah. Hey, Pedro, anything you want to say?
Take care. Love you.
Love you.
Be strong and be your loving selves.
Yes, definitely.
No, I'm all set, bro.
All right. Okay, really quick. So, parting words, thank you to everybody that joined in or that's going to listen to this or see this live stream. Later, it's going to be posted. To all my people in the community, whether you're a cult survivor, whether you're just an activist, I don't care if you're Black Lives Matter, if you want to talk about Me Too, or if you're just a concerned or just a citizen of the earth. I don't care where on the planet, in the globe, if you see this and you just want to talk about issues or promote what you do or what you sell, whatever, you know what I'm saying? I just want to make this an open town hall platform where we could, not only use our voice and get our message out there, but just as a platform where, especially with this pandemic, we're in a situation where we're constantly posting and we kind of know each other and we're always liking each other's posts and whatnot, but where we could just have a more real connection, and get to know each other a little better. And so that the public, some of us have 5,000 friends online and don't really have no idea who we're interacting with on a daily basis. I have people that I interact with daily that like my stuff. I like their stuff. We might send each other messages, but I don't really know them. And this will be a good way for all of us to get to know each other. So it doesn't matter. This is not we got deep. We talked about a lot of deep issues today. It wasn't really intended to be as deep as it is, but I always preach, let's be our authentic selves. And obviously, these are issues and matters that are important to discuss, and people, want to, get out there. So I try to let the conversation flow as much as it can, go where it goes. So thank you. This is Cult Free Network. That's what I call it, Cult Free. And just stay tuned. We're gonna be. I have a team of people that's helping me, and we're gonna just make it a little bit more streamlined. We're gonna have our banner there. We're gonna have where people could be more interactive, even if they don't come on camera. They could participate more, maybe type in some comments and stuff. So a YouTube channel is going to be coming soon where you can like and subscribe. So if you can, share this out. And if anybody else out there wants to be on the show, just send me a message to Joshua Rivera on Facebook. I gotta see what my Twitter handle is. I don't really use Twitter that much, but I am going to start. And I'll just see you out there in the cyber world. Thank you again. Peace out, y'all.